Hello friends, hi, I'm Abhinash and welcome once again to my channel. Let me remind you that my objective is to help and assist as many freshers and working professionals as possible by sharing my experiences with all of you. Today, let me start with a brief introduction about myself. I possess close to 20 years of experience in almost all facets of human resource. I'm currently working as HR head with a prominent MNC based out of Kolkata. Some of the prominent companies I've been associated with include Tega Industries, Balrampur Chini Mills, and Mahindra Logistics. Let me remind you to like my videos and also subscribe to my channel if you have not done so. Fine, so let's get started. Explaining gaps in employment is really just about knowing what reasons are okay to share and which ones you should tell a white lie about or not share, and then being upfront and comfortable with your answer. Let us come to the various sample reasons for having a gap in employment. Caring for a sick family member, caring for a young child, taking leave during childbirth, any medical or health issue of self or a close family member, taking time off to relocate and find a job in a new state or city, pursuing any other type of professional training, taking time off to travel, trying to start a business or freelance career. You were laid off as your former company downsized, etc., and you had trouble finding a job thereafter. You were actively searching but had trouble finding a job. I'll cover this in detail later, but you'll need to make it sound like you are being selective in your job search and waiting to find the right fit. Once you've got the reason prepared, here are the general ways of explaining gaps in employment during interview. Number one, explain the situation clearly but briefly. They don't need a ton of personal details, just give them the core facts. Point number two, show that the situation has ended or is no longer a factor, so they won't be worried you will have to take another break from working. If they hire you, they want to know if you're 100% ready to work for them. And point number three, reiterate your interest in their position and bring the focus back on this job interview and this position. I've come across several candidates who may not have been working but show in their resume that they're currently working. During interviews, they inform interviewers that they have ceased working in the company. I had faced such a candidate recently while interviewing. This approach will leave a bad taste, and interviewers will tell you upfront as to why you didn't mention that in your CV. My suggestion to job candidates would be to stop doing so and mention their job tenure correctly. If a candidate has ceased working in a company, they should mention that in their CV and wait for the CV to be shortlisted. Examples of how to explain employment gaps in an interview. Let us look at sample explanation 1. I had to resign from my previous position to take care of my uncle who had to be hospitalized after he met with an accident. My uncle is a widower and childless and lived with us. Since my father is a railway employee posted in North India, he was mostly away from home. Hence, I had to take care of my uncle. Now my uncle has recovered and I am fully available to work. So I have begun job searching and I am focused on finding a sales supervisor or manager position that will help me advance my career. Now let us look at sample response 2. I was laid off 6 months ago. I started my job search immediately thereafter and I am looking for sales supervisor or sales manager positions now to continue advancing my career. I have attended a number of interviews but haven't found the right fit yet. One thing I'm looking for is a chance to mentor and train team members and manage a team directly. I saw that mentioned on the job description for this position. Can you tell me more about that, please? Now let us look at sample explanation 3, which is intended towards female employees. I resigned a year ago since I was expecting my child, and the doctor had advised bed rest for me. Further, I wanted to explore the joys of motherhood to the fullest and not get bogged down from the stress associated with my job. Now, my child is 6 months old, and my in laws have agreed to stay with us and take care of my child. Hence, I have now started looking for a job. A better line which some people use to explain employment gaps is I took a sabbatical. Hence, depending upon the time of your leave, you can mention that I took a sabbatical for 6 months or 1 year, as the case may be. The one adjustment I'd recommend making on your job application or resume is be clear and direct and don't give too much information. The only goal of your job application is to get you into the interview. If they are concerned about employment gaps, they will ask more in the interview. And that's where you should be very open or honest and explain things further. That's where you can gauge their reactions, decide how much to share based on their responses, etc. You can't do this with written explanation. So, by writing too much information on a job application, you might do more harm than good. It is better to discuss this type of thing in person. So, limit your explanation to 1 to 2 sentences for each gap in employment on your resume or cover letters, etc. However, you must remember these two things while answering. First, you must sound like an in demand job candidate. If you are explaining the current gap in employment, you need to sound like you are being selective and that you are focused on making sure you find the best fit for the long term rather than just accepting the first job you come across. That will make a 6 month gap or longer sound a bit better. If you have been job hunting during your employment gap, you don't want it to sound like you haven't had a single interview in the last few months. That's never a good idea. If your gap in employment is related to health, travel, a family member's health, etc., then it's fine to say you haven't had any interviews. Point number two is be upfront and honest. Gaps in employment happen, and most employers will realize this. If you have made it to the interview, there is obviously something they liked on your resume. So, when it comes to explaining gaps in employment, it is best to be honest and upfront. You probably won't lose out on the job by explaining the situation. You lose out on the job by lying or seeming like you're trying to cover something up. It is usually better to be upfront than hide employment gaps. I'll always give the same resume advice to candidates with gaps in their work history. Be straightforward rather than trying to hide dates or other pieces of information. Hiring managers are usually going to be able to tell you if you're hiding something. Your resume should feature a chronological work history at the first page that includes job titles, company names, key responsibilities for each role, and yes, dates of employment. No matter what you do, there are some employers out there who won't like the fact that you have a gap in your employment. That's okay. Companies like that aren't worth your time. You're human. Things happen. And there's more to life than working non-stop for 20 or 30 years. So don't get discouraged if a few companies say they're not interested or just don't respond. I guarantee those are the same companies you do not want to work for anyway because they're going to have horrible leave policies, bosses who question you every time you take a sick leave, etc. My final advice on how to explain employment gaps is don't be apologetic about your work history. Taking time off is not something to be ashamed of. Not every company will want to interview you, but some will. Stand by your decisions and choices and be ready to answer questions and explain yourself further in the job interview. This concludes my presentation for today. Hope you all have liked it. As usual, I'll look forward to your comments on my video and happily answer any questions which you may have. So, until we meet again, thanks, have a nice day, bye, take care.